Hello, Soul Tribe, and welcome back to David Berry 75's channel. I'm your guest reader, Toni, and the last chapter was chapter 7 and not chapter 6, so I'm not going to re-record, as you've already seen it. Alright, so definitely, if you'd like to guest read, contact David through email or Discord or hunt him down. And we're moving on to chapter 8, Hermeticism. All right. Hermeticism is the masterly science of the universe, which came to the planet Earth in the times of Lemuria. According to tradition, Hermeticism was brought by extraterrestrial masters who, by this transcendental act, tried to give sapiens the possibility of higher evolution, which, until that time, had been denied to them. We do not know the deepest motives of these visitors. We only know that they came to this place and stayed for a long time. The physical fact of their arrival and in what vessel they may have arrived is what least interests us. Let's say that a space vehicle is not the only way of traveling in the universe. It is possible that human beings, or humanoids, as they may be called, can, under certain circumstances, and even without a material body, fly through the universe at speeds faster than light. It is not light that flies fastest in the cosmos, but thought. And we truly believe that it is possible to fly on the wings of thought, as symbolized by the god Mercury. From the Hermetic point of view, we are not interested in the scientific and technical advances of the visitor from space. We are only interested in the science of the internal nature of the human being, the absolute key to all sciences. For this reason, we can correctly call Hermeticism the science of all sciences. From ancient times until now, Hermetic science has not been lost or weakened, but remains in all its purity. Although many pseudo-philosophical mystification have arisen which have been transformed into systems based on Hermeticism, but which lack true knowledge. In our age, Hermeticism is fully active and continues to give man the opportunity to escape from his cosmic classification and to rise to an infinitely higher level. The level of man, that is, of the creation in whom the highest human qualities are manifested, which sapiens definitely lack. This progenies passage requires the authentic mutation of sapiens who, if successful in the process, will forever abandon his terrestrial condition to convert himself into a stellar man. This is not an abstraction or a symbol, but an absolute, real, true, concrete, and tangible possibility. However much we study the marvels of nature or the wonders of science and technology, there does not exist, nor will there ever exist, a marvel such as what we are pointing out. The metamorphosis of the human larva into a stellar man. This occurs at present in our age, in this world, and it is not something that people are completely ignorant of, since much has been written regarding esoteric initiatic tradition. However, sapiens prefer to be involved in studies which are absolutely unimportant, unproductive, and temporal, and which do not produce any benefit that will withstand the passing of time. In Santiago, Buenos Aires, Paris, Peking, New York, Moscow, or Cairo, mutants are being formed. Stellar men who will forever abandon their terraqueous beings. Although they may physically live on this planet and collaborate more than anyone else towards real progress, it is possible to be a stranger on your own planet, but as superior beings living a simple and anonymous life. Insignificant men continually strive to call attention to themselves, the truly important endeavor to pass unnoticed. The invaders of aliens, as the hypothetical visitor from the star has been called, are not about to arrive. They have been here since the remote area of Lemuria, anonymous and entirely mixed with the crowd. These men have always been the light of humanity. Like Prometheus, they carry the divine flame in their hand, lightning, inspiring, and helping terrestrial men who are in a mere larval state of evolution. What do these stellar men do? To what do they dedicate their time? They do the same work as an ordinary man. Since they must earn their daily bread, because their superior condition does not free them from the responsibility of labor. On the contrary, the more aware a man is, the greater his responsibilities will be. Apart from their struggle to survive, they undertake intense hermetic activities. That is, their existence, actions, thoughts, and ideas have a transcendental superior purpose. Do not think that these beings live at attempting to teach Hermeticism to terrestrial beings. On the contrary, Hermetic science is stellar knowledge, prohibited to terrestrials, to whom this teaching may be transmitted only when they successfully comply with the formalities of the process we call initiation. Those who do not fulfill these requirements have no right, out of mere curiosity, to know what is veiled by the law of the Supreme Creator or Great Orderer of the universe. Do not believe either that all these stellar men live making their process of initiation known. Only a very few of them have taken on this serious responsibility. The rest labor in other works, which is the case cannot be divulged. Continuing their explanation, there are two kinds of stellar men: those who originally arrived from outer space and continue their evolution on this planet, and those who by initiation were transformed into mutants and reached their qualification of stellar men due to the elevation of their awareness. The most recent manifestation of Hermeticism is the past occurred in Egypt with the master of masters, Hermes Trismegistus, the 3 times great, in an era not able to be determined historically. Tradition tells us that this master reached our planet Earth 30,000 years ago. Hermetic philosophy derived its name from the teaching of Hermes, who was a perfect heir and follower of the earlier masters. We must understand that before Hermes, Hermetic science must have been called by another name, but this is not important, as words are only symbols, which can change many times while the destined object remains the same in its nature. During the course of history, Hermetic science adopted many names but remained constant in its internal nature. The most known Hermeticists were the early Rosicrucians, not those who are currently carrying this name, who adopt a series of explanatory symbols in order to facilitate the transmission of the teaching to students. It must be said that if, in fact, a few true Rosicrucians exist today, no one knows about them. The Hermeticists, whether they be Rosicrucians, magicians, initiates, masters, wizards, etc., are not grouped into one Hermetic order or Rosicrucian order, but they are scattered throughout the world, each one independent in spite of working within a common plan. A stellar man may be an eminent politician, a priest, a schoolmaster, an author, a screen star, a soldier, an artisan, or any thinker. Each one of these knows exactly what he's doing in his job. These men do not act as master instructors. The masters of wisdom are generally in charge of a school of Hermetic instruction, but as stated before, there are very few of these men. When we speak of Hermetic philosophy, many people believe that it is an abstract theoretical discipline, a mere exercise of thought, which gives nothing practical to the individual. Traditional philosophy offers an immense range of deflection of innumerable problems which concern sapiens. The great philosophers who exist in the history of humanity are today the pillars of civilized thinking. Apparently, there is little more to be added to what has already been stated in this respect. For this reason, speaking of Hermetic philosophy does not disturb or stir anyone. We must state that we do not endeavor in any way to call attention to ourselves, cause sensationalism, or to proselytize. We only wish to tell something to the world so that according to its inhabitants' ability to think, they may understand the rudiments of Hermetic art, or deny them, make fun of them, or merely shrug their shoulders. The great Hermetic sages are not interested in convincing anyone. They only fulfill their work of spirituality, enlightening humanity. If their message is heard, they rejoice with the promise of a new dawn for sapiens. If they are not understood or appreciated, they will lament for those who will be deprived of such a beautiful and remarkable opportunity. Stellar men are not very concerned with the passage of time, as they are immortal in their intrinsic nature. They may be transformed many times, suffering the process we call death, but beyond this, they retain their conscious identity and the memory of their knowledge, returning each time to physical existence as one who awakens from a health-giving sleep. It is sapiens who should be concerned about time, as the brevity of his existence as a thinking identity obliges him to work rapidly in his wishes to be converted into a stellar man and attain immortality. Many ask, how is it that Hermeticism remains so unknown if it is really so important? Others will identify Hermetic philosophy with yoga, occultism, mentalism, parapsychology, spiritualism, demonology, or black magic, etc., believing that there is no Hermetic secret, despite the abundant literature which exists on this subject. It should be known that Hermeticism has not spread beyond the true schools, as it is an art whose knowledge can only be obtained in a special state of consciousness, which, if not reached, makes all study in this respect hollow and empty talk. The wisdom of awakened men cannot be understood by sleeping beings, however intelligent they may be. It could be believed that Hermetic philosophy is something that must be studied constantly in spiritual retirement, sharpening the intellect to the maximum in order to fulfill the instructional plan as soon as possible. Conversely, as distinct from traditional philosophy, Hermeticism is something deeply vital. The individual must face the different transformations through which man passes during his earthly existence in order to take advantage of the teaching in a practical manner, as Hermetic philosophy is the art of living, not taught in any university or school. The student must take possession of Hermetic wisdom by the sweat of his brow, getting to know life at its root, passing through as many experiences as possible, enlightened by what he has truly learned, enabling him to develop himself into a true Hermetic sage and a stellar man. Hermeticism is the only living philosophy, the only knowledge, which is idea, concept, flesh, blood, and spirit. As it is flesh and blood, recall Jesus at the Last Supper. It constantly renews itself. It is dynamic, flexible, and eternally young. Hermeticism is the achievement of wisdom as a living philosophy. It is the universal and divine spirit, transubstantiated into a body of living matter. There is no hermetic mold, dye, or matrix which could serve as a model to produce stellar men, according to an established pattern. On the contrary, each one of these men is truly unique. It is for this reason that Hermetic philosophy is not taught in the traditional manner which Sapien is accustomed to. For in traditional study, success is guaranteed to the most studious or intelligent. If Hermeticism was taught according to a program of subjects the student had to master, we would be creating brainwashed men programmed according to a plan. It would be a violation of this science itself, which simply stated seeks freedom, independence, and the will of man. It is difficult for a person to understand how it is possible to teach without teaching, how to convey knowledge without a programmed and methodical instructional process. The answer is simple. In the initiatic process, the student is placed before very peculiar vital conditions in order that he may, with a self-taught criteria, create his own knowledge, the basis of which is given to him in oral instructions, or a very special nature, and in a mystic process we could call mental osmosis. To tell the truth, Hermeticism recognizes no other possibility of real learning aside from self-taught knowledge, in which it is the subject himself who is teaching himself, having received basic information from a teacher or simply from the written word. The educational system used in schools and universities suffer from a serious defect. It programs the students accordingly to rigid plans engraved in his brain by the force of the prestige and authority of these establishments. The intelligence of the pupil is seriously damaged and transformed into a static capacity, focused solely on the subject learned, making it practically impossible for him to take on the profound analysis of really new and different things. At a professional level, it is regrettable to observe specialists who have been molded after a basic stereotype as if they were manufactured on an assembly line. Hermetic science is the only science which does not cerebrally program an individual, and it frees his intelligence from established mechanical circuits. The intelligence of the stellar man is free and unprogrammed. The explanation of how this is achieved is beyond the reach of a programmed intellect, and therefore is not a subject to be explained in this book. As a general orientation only, the reader should reflect upon the relationship between the specific and general, and on the popular saying that nothing is true or untrue. All is according to the color of the glass through which it is seen. Truly, only by rising above the many facets of truth is it possible to know absolute truth, which summarizes it in itself what is and what is not, truth and falsehood, good and evil, ignorance and wisdom, life and death. We also wish to refer to the koans used in Zen Buddhism as an example of what we are saying. The koan is a type of symbolic dialogue between a master and his disciple. The master sets up a question which cannot be solved intellectually because of its beyond reason. This method is an attempt to destroy and surpass conceptual thought in order to reach the essential and unique nature of all things. Hermeticism says all is mind. The word mind has been chosen to designate the unique energy of the universe, but another could be used, such as spirit, and that of nature of the universe is mental. In this way, the profound nature of all that exists would be comprised of mind energy. The atom is mind, man is mind, God is mind. Herein lies the maximum interest of Hermetic philosophy, taking possession of the knowledge of the unique essence of all things. And this essence, being everywhere, is the master key to wisdom. Life itself is contradictory and paradoxical. No one can explain to themselves why there is so much injustice in the world if there is a supreme being. In the light of the Hermetic wisdom, all contradictions disappear and paradoxes are reconciled, and the hidden cause of all things is thus understood. This is an exaggeration of the simple, and to reach what is simple, not great wisdom or instructions in traditional manners is necessary, but it is essential to have a minimal degree of culture, because without this, our intelligence would lack the data and material to work within order to reach a synthesis, a state in which the individual needs no culture, at least not of the usual sort. All right, and that's the end of chapter 8, which is Hermeticism, and we'll pick up with chapter 9, The Seeker, the next time you hear me. All right, and if you'd like to be a guest reader on David's channel, please contact him by email or send him a direct message in Discord, or hunt him down again. All right. Until next time, everybody have a favorable and beautiful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Welcome back to David Berry 75's channel, Soul Tribe, and I'm your guest reader, Toni. And if you'd like to guest read, definitely get a hold of David via email or through Discord, so that you can give your voice to a new story, or a story that's established. All right, so we're moving on to chapter 9, The Seekers. The abundant esoteric mythology does not reveal the occult, but instead veils it, causing profound concern among those who seek, whether sincerely or falsely, the light of Hermetic truth. There are many schools, centers, and movements, each one with its own philosophy. Each of these currents apparently flow against the other, and there is a great lack of agreement and coincidence in their teachings. Naturally, each school proclaims that its truth is correct, and that those similar to it are imperfect or spurious. It is not our intention to criticize the different schools, but rather to guide seekers, so they may find what they seek, and at the same time obtain more insight into their personal motives. Each seeker has a special concept of what he desires to find, and although he may indeed find what he is seeking, he will later realize that his discovery is not leading him to anything superior, real, or positive. Under the general context of occult sciences, there are those that feel attracted to spiritualism, yoga, Rishikerism, parapsychology, or mentalism. In turn, within each of these currents, there are numerous schools and pseudo-schools. The candidate for initiation finds it difficult to choose appropriately. In the first place, we may say that each individual has his own level within the general average of humanity. It is as if we all lived in a water tank, similar to an aquarium, and each person found his own level of flotation according to the density of his body. There are many kinds of sapiens. There are those who are very low and others who are very high for their species. Under these conditions, it is natural that each person should seek an adequate movement or school appropriate to his level. Otherwise, he would find it impossible to gain any benefit. In this case, it is understood that like attracts like. For an example, let us suppose a very low or dense individual arrives at a high-level school, attracted by the goal he seeks. With absolute certainty, this individual will consider this institution bad or deficient, as his concept of badness will be all that is beneath or above his own level. For him, good will be that which is suitable to his own vibration. Following this analogy of a level of flotation, those of dense vibrations find it practically impossible to remain in high-level initiatic groups, and most resign themselves to others of a lower category. It must be stated that all schools are for use, even those of low level, for if we were not them, there would be none which could cope with individuals or inferior quality, who also need a light equal to their capabilities in order to see. On the other hand, if a man of high vibration enters a movement of low category, he will find it easy and comfortable to remain there, but his spiritual development will be scarce or nil. To be a disciple of Jesus, it was necessary to attain the level of an apostle. It was not possible any other way. It is most important to state that true schools are very scarce, and the majority of these are only centers of study and practice of elementary principles. As an explanation, we will divide these schools into 3 groups. The first one is study centers. These comprise the great majority. Number 2 is schools connected to a superior occult force. These are extremely scarce. Number 3, schools of initiation. These schools teach the mystical process of initiation in a real and not symbolic manner. They are extremely scarce and virtually unknown. In practice, any person can enter the study centers as mentioned in the first point. It is sufficient to pay the dues and to attend regularly, or maintain constant communication in the case of instructions by correspondence. It is useful for a person to belong to one of these study centers as they prepare the individual for higher things, and at the same time awaken in him greater spiritual restlessness. We could say that these groups represent the esoteric or external side of Hermetic doctrine. Under the second point, we find the schools which are actually linked to a higher power. That is, in some manner, they are connected with the stellar men. The student can get a lot of benefit from these schools. Under the third point, we have the initiatic school, which are the only ones that are truly lead the student through the process of initiation in a real and not symbolic manner. These schools are characterized by a leading master, and are the bearers of the celestial fire, which is transmitted to the student during initiation. It is essential to establish that initiation is not, as some naive people believe, a ritual ceremony practiced in a temple. The word initiation designates the entire process of mutation of the human larva into a stellar man, which is brought about and directed by the masters of these schools. Physically, we are these schools of initiation. Where are these schools of initiations located? Their location is not important, because in spite of the fact that their numbers is very small, all candidates who truly are powerfully yearn for spiritual superiority and have the capacity for it will surely find someone to guide them to one of these workshops. We must now speak of candidates for wisdom. We know there are individuals who have gone through every existing school searching for what they desire, but have never found it, probably because they do not know what they really want. They generally have the most fantastic ideas in their respect, and honestly believe that the only true masters are in India or in some mysterious and inaccessible place in the East. Others believe that it is necessary to communicate with flying saucers by telepathy in order to receive instruction from their hypothetical crews, who are assumed to be possessors of the esoteric knowledge. There are also those who believe only in spiritualism, parapsychology, or the teaching of Freemasonry. The more naive demand all types of credentials, secret scrolls, or material proof which attest to and establish the authority of the school. There are those who, influenced by the publicity, fame, or prestige of some institution, believe it the best to be found. The reality is that the candidate is not capable of choosing, and even less capable of effectively judging the goodness or defects of the institution he enters. If he was able to choose, it would be because his spiritual vision surpassed that of the instructors he is seeking, in which case there would be nothing they could teach him. Only the illumination of his own spirit would guide the candidate in this case. Far back in antiquity, the candidates for initiation into certain esoteric brotherhoods were given 2 glasses of wine or liquor, and were warned that one contained a deadly poison, leaving the neophyte to choose one and drink it all its contents. If he did not accept this, he was immediately rejected. We know that sometimes it was only a trick to weigh the courage and decision of the individual, but in other cases the contents were truly toxic. The premise was that if the individual drank the toxic drink, he would have already failed, because he was not illuminated by his divine spark in the search he had embarked upon. It is very important that the seeker should analyze the motives guiding him, for in this way he will avoid much unpleasantness or loss of time. We know that one of the most unpleasant aspects of human behavior is the fact that sapiens lies to himself with astounding frequency. His lies are so astute, subtle, and perfect that he may waste many years of his life only to discover that he was being cheated and he himself was the charlatan. The object of his self-deception has been very precisely identified by psychology and generally refers to the individual's need for a higher level of self-esteem. There are many techniques for self-deception, and these are grouped under the general category of rationalization. Professor Gordon Allport gives this definition. Reasons fit one impulse and belief to the world of reality. Rationalization fits one concept of reality to one's impulses and beliefs. Reasoning reveals the real causes of our actions, and rationalization finds good reasons to justify them. Here we have a treasure of subtle than usual to the vicissitudes of our civilization. In many cases, it occurs that a student enters a Hermetic brotherhood and cannot remain there because of the enormous difficulties that arise along the way. For this reason, the majority of the candidates may be lost, as it is very simple to become part of a study group or contemplative school where there is no real initiation. If the student enters an initiatic school, he must face and overcome the phantom of himself if he desires to reach the light. Nature will test him without mercy in order to establish his true spiritual quality. In Hermetic alchemy, it is said that to make gold, there must be gold, even an infinitesimal fraction of it. So, through the test, it will be known with the absolute certainty how much spiritual gold the candidate has. If he does not have the gold seed, all mutation will be impossible, and the individual must be prepared to fight during this life in order to create his tiny portion of spiritual gold, which will enable him to go forward in his next incarnation. It also happens that once within a Hermetic brotherhood, the student may remain there for several years, blind and deaf to the teachings he receives, without being able to weigh the immense value of the school and the knowledge he is receiving. The situation may last forever or be overcome one day by an illuminating experience that opens the individual's eyes forever. The lack of progress or success is generally due to the fact that the individual does not make sufficient effort, limiting the work he does in order not to deceive anyone. It must be stated that Hermeticism is not in any way for those who are lazy or cherish their comfort. On the contrary, it is for those who are willing to make titanic efforts towards evolution. Here we have touched a point which we are already spoken of, but it is necessary to analyze this point many times in order to understand it. We refer to the fact that the layman always thinks of occultism, magic, or Hermeticism as a system which will permit him, by the use of magic formulae, to obtain more rapidly and without any significant effort that which would normally be attained only after much perseverance. For example, that wealth, love, work, or special favors will be gained through the intervention of higher powers. As already stated, people always believe what they want to believe, what is convenient for their purpose. In this case, all that entails avoiding effort and obtaining things by miraculous procedure will be immediately accepted by the populace. Without doubt, the tale of Aladdin and his magic lamp and 1,001 Arabian Nights were written by a Lafer, unconsciously projecting his occult dreams. This does not mean that those marvels are not possible, but they can in no way be an abracadabra for obtaining things with little work or effort, when the Hermetic principle states that every cause produces an effect, which would be potentially equivalent to the action and gave it origin, and will have a period of gestation or realization according to the importance of what is sought. There is no miracle for obtaining things without effort, as if they could fall from heaven. this would be an arbitrary alienation of the cosmic order. And if this capricious act were possible, the matter integrating the universe would break up. In the cosmos, there are neither miracles nor chance, only the law of cause and effect, and the natural phenomenon produced by the law of nature, which are little known. What is called a miracle is only a natural occurrence, but an unknown nature. There are also those who do not find because they do not wish to find. For if they were to do so, they would be obliged to face the arduous problem of overcoming themselves in order to evolve. They know this beforehand, and it frightens them. On the other hand, to turn into an eternal seeker requires no great effort, just the opposite. It enables the individual to give free rein to his most audacious dreams without any danger of misfortune. By surrendering himself to the dreamlike fantasies, the perpetual explorer avoids facing the real opportunity of fulfilling himself in a genuine manner. It is very easy to dream for 30 years or more that one is becoming more perfect as the days go by, and that is on the road to spiritual perfection. Naturally, this fantasy, according to the degree of self-deception, makes life easier and more bearable for the individual, but one day he must face the cruel truth. Without wishing to offend anyone, and only to make known what is true, it is necessary to consider that there are as many types of schools as there are types of individuals. There are schools for those who arrive into the light of Hermetic teaching for the first time in their chain of incarnation. There are schools for the greatly evolved, for people who are very enlightened or intelligent, stupid, simple, for those who have failed in their initiation and their past lives, for masters punished by the occult judges. There are schools of white magic and also of black magic. We have already mentioned the dangers of those who are psychologically sick, taking refuge in Hermeticism as a means of escaping their internal problems, or using Hermeticism as an incentive for their most exalted dreams. Much more dangerous is the lamentable case of becoming a disciple of a sick master. Are there sick masters? Certainly there are, and there is. And this is explained by the ambiguity of the word master and the fact that the human brain has a ceiling of resistance, and beyond that limit it may become unbalanced. Let us take the case of an individual who has gathered much esoteric knowledge, but who has not evolved spiritually as a real stellar man due to inefficient internal cleanliness, and not having been able to overcome his mental disturbances arising from frustrations or diverse complexes. Remember that the mental disturbance is not a synonym for insanity. The individual at any given time, for reasons not necessary to analyze, may found a school and transmit teaching which naturally will be distorted by this master's psychological disturbances. This does not mean that the teachings transmitted by this man will be false. On the contrary, they could be entirely true in theory. Here we can cite an aphorism of great esoteric significance, which says, "Correct methods in the hands of incorrect men function incorrectly. Incorrect methods used by correct men function correctly." This refers to the fact that true knowledge in the hands of an individual who are morally, emotionally, or mentally gone astray will act deviously, and the one who receives this teaching will experience a negative reaction as a result. On the other hand, it could happen that a man of integrity and purity could be mistaken in some of the knowledge he possesses. In this case, we have not the least doubt that magically the final result will be adequate and correct. Naturally, the ideal would be an individual of integrity with accurate knowledge. This explains why the black magicians may possess great esoteric knowledge, but their goal and true purpose are never known, as their object is always to deceive the student in their schools, to make use of him into a convert manner for their own ends. It is thus they always exploit the weaknesses of their followers, making them conceive all kinds of great illusions for the future. Returning to the case we pointed out regarding a sick master, this individual is generally completely sincere, is convinced that he is the sole possessor of the truth and knowledge. One of the most outstanding characteristics of these disturbed individuals is their self-worship, which is so overwhelming that they are completely convinced that they are God himself incarnated on earth, and naturally are infallible in omniscience. They are never mistaken because they are also right. The loss of a sense of self-criticism and their self-glorification is easily recognized by the language they use in referring to themselves, as all their tales are always directed towards showing how they are powerful, wise, intelligent, and infallible. Any psychiatrist would find any of these men to be classic case studies. We must realize that it is easy for a paranoid person and even a schizophrenic to have access to esoteric knowledge and adopt the role of master. Nevertheless, it is relatively easy to recognize them. Self-worship, insane infallibility, self-defecation, self-glorification, and a supposed monopoly on the truth will generally be the most outstanding characteristics of these men. Summarizing initiation may derail an individual from his purpose of spiritual perfection and lead him to a delirium of greatness and megalomania, within which he confuses the truth he has been exposed to with the dreams and illusions knit together in his unconscious state. That is, there is an initiatic abortion. For example, consider the case of an individual who was not able to cleanse his soul, but who obtained knowledge of certain things and was converted into the shadow of light. The devil always uses inverted truth to confuse people. That which is demonic is only the divine inverted. There are also schools whose real purpose is not initiatic but politics, and they use the organization as a screen to recruit followers. Their real purpose is not to form stellar men, but to enlarge the battalions of certain ideological systems. One last warning with regard to the schools. Always distrust those who praise the individual's self-esteem with repeated assurances that he is a very evolved person, very spiritual, and a very intelligent and prepared. It seems in some centers this system of flattery is used, either brazenly or subtly, as a method of using the students for purposes of which he is unaware. Lies skillfully doused with directed and are used there as a weapon for handling the student, exploiting his base passions with the promise that he will unfailingly attain his desires. In the same way, we must distrust those who teach without asking anything in return, like a romantic Jesus Christ. If teachings are given gratis, it is because there are no value. That which is valuable to possess always requires something of equivalent value in return. Many pseudo-masters say that teachings must be for free. We state something absolutely different. True teachings cannot be bought, as they are not for sale, but it is necessary that the student contribute something of value to those who instruct him, either to school or to the physical master. This is an occult law which cannot be violated. In conclusion, we insist that a school must always have a master, because without one, being limited to just transmitting a legacy of the past, there can be no disciples. Since in order to have students, there must be a master. It does not matter if the instructor at hand is an esoteric brotherhood, has not reached the stature of a great master, because not everyone can reach this. What is important is that the individual be effectively well-oriented and be a person who is straight, healthy, and pure. The seeker has no other manner of finding the master other than by his own internal aspiration. The stronger his desire for truth and freedom, the more certain it is that he will find what he is seeking. All right, and that's the end of chapter 9 and the end of the first part. So we're going to go into the second portion. It's called The Road of Olympus, and we'll start on chapter 10, which is the 7 keys of wisdom, which is the Hermetic principles. So we're going to break those into 2 different videos because it's very long and you don't want to sit there for 2 hours listening to me. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you'd like to be a guest reader on David Berry 75's channel, definitely send him an email or go into Discord and leave him and talk to him via direct messenger. Otherwise, have a good one, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.